Well, hi, hello, and welcome to the first episode ever of Queer Talk for the straight folk and everyone in between and beyond. This is not the first time that I try to launch a YouTube channel. As you can see, I have other videos in Spanish and that didn't work. I think the problem is that I still haven't found my voice, like a proper subject that I can speak about without the need of writing a whole script about it. I've written some stuff that I'm really proud of, but I think I'm not there yet. So I think we're gonna start nice and slow. As you can see, I like to, just dressed up a little bit sometimes. So I thought that maybe this subject could be a perfect topic to start. I'm not in this, I'm sorry. You're not seeing it anyway. Oh, freedom. Yes. Oh my God. Yes, anyway. If you were not totally sure about it, I'm queer. I identify as a cis gay man, but I'm very fluid in my gender expression. As you can see, I like to get in drag. I like to just make a fool of myself and play with my feminine side. And I like big dicks, and I cannot lie. And I know what you must be thinking, yet another queer person talking about queer issues and queer representation on media. And yes. But I think I have a different perspective, or maybe I can give a different perspective on this kind of topics and issues, because I'm not a young gay. I'm actually a middle-aged gay. I know I don't look like it. I know I don't sound like it, but I am. I'm 35 years old. And I come from Venezuela. That's why I have this accent. So I have a rather different experience from most people, So I don't know. I guess I can, maybe it's time, maybe it's age, maybe it's the place that I was born, but I think I have a particular, let's call it that way, story about my queerness and the acceptance of this queerness. The makeup is crunchy and you can cloak it as much as you want. Please do, because I need to improve. The reason why it's crunchy, well, I just started, I wouldn't say 1 year ago. I tried 1 year ago, but a couple of times and it didn't work out, so I just stopped. I had never tried to paint my face. And this is the progress that I've made in, I would say 4 months. I feel very proud of it, but you can cloak it as much as you want. Please critique it. English is hard. Please give me a constructive criticism, because I need it. I'm trying to understand my face, and also taking into account that if you notice that this eye is not the same as this eye, and that is because this one it doesn't work.
She's a man with one eye.
So I basically have to do the whole thing with one eye only. But well, one thing that you will have to learn if you're gonna keep coming back here to listen to what I have to say is that I talk a lot and I make long introductions. So yeah, get into it. Anyway, the subject of today, I wanted to share with you my thoughts on a movie that I rewatched recently, which I am totally convinced that it's the first queer movie that at least I can remember that I ever watched. The movie in question is called the Song Trilogy.
English is hard.
Trilogy, but the Song Trilogy. This movie, I watched it, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years old. I know the movie marked me because I remember it very well. But since it's an old movie, it came out in 1988. I was born in 1985. I was a little bit scared to rewatch it, actually. I mean, after so many years, after so many lessons, after, this whole thing that I would have dared to do a couple of years ago, I just said to myself, I'm not sure if I want to rewatch a movie that I watched when I was a little kid, and I feel that it's going to, take me back to that time and make me feel bad about being this little kid in a homophobic family trying to find himself, because we all know what to expect from a movie with a queer character, especially from the 80s and the 90s. We know what is going to happen to them. they're either gonna die or they're gonna just be a laughingstock, the comic relief of the movie, or they're just gonna be the tragic story, you know, just see how tragic it is to be queer. So given that there is a movie that I treasure, and I didn't know why, especially as the first movie that I can remember, the first queer movie that I can remember I ever watched, I was a little bit apprehensive to rewatch it the first time. But then I did, and I was very pleased, actually. I was very delighted. I mean, I remembered like the parts, the big storylines of the movie, I remember. But there were a lot of more nuances that I had never catch because, of course, this is a movie that I watched when I was 5, 6, or 7 years old. Like the fact that this movie, the script of the movie and the main character are portrayed by Harvey Fierstein, or Fierstein, or I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but you know him. And if you don't, Google him, because he's like this ultimate gay icon from that time, especially the end of the last millennia. He was one of the most, well, he is, I don't know, one of the most iconic gay actors in the whole history of Hollywood. So I totally forgot that he was in the movie, and he's actually the main character. So I was actually really delighted when the movie starts and he's the first character that we see. You know, the main character is him, and it's like, oh, yeah, this is good. This is actually good. It's cool. Later on, there's even Matthew Broderick on the film as a queer character. Why is that important? Well, I mean, Matthew Broderick is, to me at least, in my opinion, is one of the best allies that the LGBTQ community has ever had in Hollywood. He's just like, I don't know, he's such positive masculinity that oozes out of that man that I'm totally red hot. But yeah, and especially on that movie, he was so young, so, but well.
Oh, you thirsty bitch?
But anyway, we're gonna try to summarize it and keep it like really short because I just talk too much. But anyway, let's summarize the plot the best that I can. The movie is about a drag queen. It's the story of a drag queen in the 70s. It starts with Arnold, who's our main character. He's a drag queen and he has his show and just regular drag queen life. One day he goes to a bar. Arnold gets hit on by this gorgeous masculine, like traditionally masculine guy, and he turns out to be a bisexual, which is lovely. And they go to the place and they do what they have to do, and they start dating actually. But remember that this is the 80s, so the moment that the guy said he was bisexual, we all knew that this whole thing was hidden. You know, if homosexual couples were hidden back in the day, can you imagine a bisexual with a homosexual back in the day? No. Nobody was supposed to know about that. But anyway, they do have, you know, like a little romance. You can see that they spend a fair amount of time together. But one day, the bisexual man, whose name is Ed, he says he's not sure that this is what he wants. You know, wanted to be with a man in a couple, you know, like in a couple setting. He tried, but it didn't work for him. Of course, Arnold does not take that very kindly, and I totally get him, but he does not take that very well. He actually thinks that, oh no, this is just a break. He just needs to, you know, the needs that he has, let him fill them out, and then he'll come back. So the day of his birthday, Arnold's birthday, he makes this whole dinner and stuff, but of course Ed is not coming. So of course Arnold goes to Ed's place, because he just wants to see him. And when he does, well, he sees that Ed has prepared the whole thing for a dinner as well, which of course is not for Arnold. Then Ed's day arrives and it's a woman. Not only a woman, is his ex from before Arnold. So yeah, a little bit awkward. So they have a little bit of a discussion, heated discussion. The woman, I forgot her name, let's call her Lindsay. Lindsay hears the whole thing. So Arnold goes away. He tries to carry on with his life. He goes to visit his parents, who give him a, you know, lovely support of parents of the time, pushing poor little Arnold to say something like,
And it kills me to think that they look at me and wonder what they did wrong.
Which basically summarizes my whole childhood. That was my whole childhood, just thinking about that. But anyway, things go back to normal. Arnold just gets back to work.
Just once, I'd like to see a bisexual who lived with his boyfriend and then snuck out to see his girlfriend on the sly.
One fateful day, Ed comes into the place where she performs. I mean, Ed knew Arnold, but he didn't knew Victoria Ham, I think was her drag name. He didn't knew Victoria, so she's totally like, what? She's clearly bothered. I would too, especially if this is the man like coming here trying to tell me, ugh.
Perdóname.
But anyway, Ed comes back, he tells me, I love you, la la la, so it's like, you. Eventually, Arnold drops his defenses a little bit, and they start talking just like, you know, like adults and regular people. Ed begins telling him the story about this dream that he had the night before, and that is actually what prompted him to come look for Arnold. It's a kind of symbolic dream. You'll have to watch the movie. Basically, Arnold realized that Ed was simply scared. He was terrified of the realization that yes, you might love this woman that you are with, but you're not in love with her, you're in love with a man. And that can be terrifying, especially for a straight or a bisexual man. That can be something very stressful or very difficult to handle. Again, this is a movie from 1988. So the anguish was real, the anxiety was real. Arnold, basically, who's 100% sure of who he is and what he wants, basically now has a choice. Do I want to go with him and, you know, live the life that I know that I will live, which is, you know, being the secret lover, you know, having to spend the holidays with my family without a partner because my partner does not want me to be public about our relationship, all of that good stuff from the 80s and the 90s.
Lovely stuff.
And this is, of course, the first moment where I cried because Arnold talks to the camera. He gives us his whole reasoning in that particular moment and why his conclusion is no. He's not gonna come with Ed. He's not gonna go and settle for that. So I was like, I was living my life in that moment. I remember the whole Ed thing, but I did not remember that that's how that part ended. Because this is only the first part. I told you I'd talk a lot, bitch. Second act, seriously, I'm gonna try to keep it short. Arnold continues with his life. He just continues with his career. He's having a good career. He's actually having a lot of success. And then one day he meets this young guy who turns out to be 100% gay. He's not like having questions in his mind. No, he's gay, and he's openly gay. He actually left his house somewhere in the States to go to New York to be openly gay. So that's absolutely not an issue anymore, which is lovely. That's always lovely for a queer person to be with somebody who's 100% open and transparent and 100% who doesn't give a fuck, like 100% don't give a fuck. They start this romance and it's really lovely. I mean, it's a romanticization of, you know, what life can be, you know. I mean, I don't see myself as the ugliest guy, but I'm not Matthew Broderick kind of cute. So having a man that cute coming to you, especially when you're that queer, when you're this queer, having such good-looking man coming to you, masculine good-looking man coming to you and telling you like, yeah, I wanna be with you, let's try something, I cannot stop thinking about you. That is something that it has happened to me, but let's say that it didn't end up like in the movie, thankfully, in a way, because we're gonna get to the end of the second act. But yeah. Anyway, they start the romance and everything's great. The romance is tested when Lindsay invites them to come for a weekend for a getaway weekend with Ed, you know, because she wants also to know, like, did you actually, I mean, are you over the whole having sex with guys thing, or what? Because, I mean, if we're gonna get married, I want to know that I don't have to worry about my husband sleeping around with dudes, which is totally comprehensible, because, I mean, I'm sure that she wouldn't want his man to be sleeping with other girls either, so I don't know, I don't blame her, but it was kind of shady. Anyway, they go to the getaway, and comedy ensues, jealousy, and Ed ends up Arnold's new boyfriend. Yes, things get a little bit more complicated after that. Like, Lindsay does not want to be with Ed like right now, so they separate. Arnold and his boyfriend, whose name is Alan, they don't separate, but they do have a big fight. They work things out in the end. And they have no option, they really have to, because they both want to adopt a child. And, well, I mean, you need to have a good home to adopt a child. I don't know what the status of adoption rights were in the late 80s, but I imagine that was kind of a political point to make. A very important political point to make in 1988. But anyway, they get into the adoption process, they get accepted, they get a reply, everything's gonna be great, you're gonna get a son. He's gonna be a 15 years old gay little boy. So they have to move like really quick to find a bigger apartment to accommodate for the child. And what they do, they find a new apartment. The thing is that it's not like in the best neighborhood possible. You can see it clearly. And I think this is the part of the movie that really traumatized me when I was a little kid, because this is the part of the movie that I remember vividly. I remember the scene so clearly. Of course I was bawling my eyes out, but I was like, fuck, this is why I did not want to watch this movie again, because it's the first time that a movie broke my heart. They moved to this neighborhood and everything's great. They have been together for like 7 years, I think, and they're just moving their stuff to the new apartment. And the same day that they're moving into the apartment, Alan gets murdered on the streets on a gay bashing attack. I'm trying not to cry, I'm sorry, I just remember the scene and it's a tough scene, you know, because, I mean, can you imagine little 6-7-year-old me watching that, saying like, yes, I can be gay, I can be queer, I can enjoy dressing up like a woman, I can enjoy putting makeup and making a fool of myself, I can do all of those things and find love, and not only love, I can find Matthew Broderick kind of love. All that to be taken away from me by a gay bashing scene. Now again, this is a 1988 movie and it was written by a queer person, so this is not like a straight man or straight woman trying to, you know, write about queer experience from a point of view that is not as good as ours. No, it's written by a queer person, so whatever happens on the movie, you know that it's real. I mean, not real, this movie. You know that those are themes that you have to deal with when you're queer. I mean, it's an old movie as well, you know, this is 1988, you have to bury your gays. And that's the end of the second part. The third part, that's why it's called a Song Trilogy. I was going to say trilogy again.
Trilogy!
Now, the third act is, obviously it's my favorite, because it's like it's where I find myself now, today. And maybe this is why I was so pleased to rewatch that when I was rewatching. But in any case, the third act is mostly dedicated to the mother. There is David in his life now, in Arnold's life. He's settled in the house, they get along great, they have this really good dynamic, and also living in the apartment, or at least staying in the apartment for a while, is Ed, who's made a comeback. Yes, the movie doesn't say it explicitly, but you can understand that he's like divorcing Lindsay. So all of this frames a visit from Arnold's mother. All of this time after Arnold's death, Arnold hasn't told his mom that he adopted a child, a gay child, and he wasn't really very communicative and very open about the way that Alan was killed. She just thought probably he died in an accident or something like that. But finally we get to the meat of the whole act, and that's when they both go to the cemetery. They are Jewish, so I don't know how important it is in Jewish tradition to visit your dead relatives. I imagine it must be like in Christianism that it depends on the person. But they get to the cemetery, and the mother starts reciting the prayers for her husband, and Arnold wants to do the same. He takes out the little book, the little black book with the recitations or whatever. I don't know how it's called, but he starts praying for Alan, and in that moment the mother just blows off. She's like, what are you doing? You're mocking your religion, you're mocking your tradition, you're mocking your father. What are you doing? You want to come here and you're mocking me? You're mocking my marriage? In short, she wants to make the point that her marriage was a real marriage. Arnold's and Alan's was not. What they had was a fling. They just stayed together and lived together for a while. But two men together, there cannot be like love, like real love, like a couple, a married couple love. That's absolutely outrageous that you think that such thing is possible. It's outrageous enough to actually be an insult to your dead father and to your religion and to myself and to everything, And throughout the movie, we have seen the relationship between Arnold and his mom. It's always a little bit of, she's a homophobe. She's openly homophobic, but she's my mom. Like, I know that she's old and whatever. I'm like, oh, yeah, mom. But this was like the last straw for him. He just exploded. He told her basically everything she had to know about the way Alan died and how horrible it is to him that she is actually denying his pain, that she's denying his love, the love that he felt for this man, and the loss that he is currently feeling, because the love of his life was murdered on the street. So they get back to the house just to keep fighting, like a good mom and child. And that fight is really. I was crying the whole time because I was basically reliving the whole experience of coming out to my mother and my grandmother, who were my mother figures in life. Oh, they never said this, the horrible things that woman on the movie said, but the feeling, I can understand what's behind of the horrible words, because I think that it was kind of the same feeling that my grandmother had about my homosexuality. My mom, she was a little bit more open about it, but still was tough for her. But she says something that I watched it and I was like, oh my fuck.
You think that's what we brought you to the world for? Believe me, if I'd have known, I wouldn't have bothered.
Basically confirming all of the fears that Arnold has ever had throughout his life. This is too much, and I love what he says to her.
There's nothing I need from anyone except for love and respect, and anyone who can't give me those two things has no place in my life.
I cried because that is, of course, moi. But we're not talking about me, we're talking about Arnold. He's obviously distressed about everything that happened with his mother, so he goes for a drink and he gets wasted. Ed comes to the rescue. Again, another romanticized moment of life, because that never happens. That's Bridget Jones level of story, okay? That will never happen. But it's fine, it's lovely, it's a movie. Anyway, Ed comes and picks up Arnold from the wherever he was, and they get to a cab. Basically, Ed tells Arnold that he loves him still. The time that he has spent at the house with them has been the best time that he has ever had. It's been the most fulfilled and loving and comfortable and just happy that he has ever felt. So he wants to try. But then they have a talk, because Arnold technically never told Ed why he never left with him that fateful day so many years ago, before Alan. Why he stayed, why he didn't want to go with him. And he just says it. I'm not gonna be a secret. Are you sure that you will be able to introduce me to your family? That you will have your friends for dinner? That you will talk about David as your son, as our son, and talk about me as your husband? Are you sure you're there? I don't think you are. So Ed's get shut down. But then, final scene. Finally, I know, I'm sorry. I told you I talk a lot, bitch. It's the third time that I tell you. I talk a lot. The next day, tensions are still between the mother and Arnold. But paradoxically, this is the most beautiful scene in the whole movie. It starts with Ed coming to Arnold when they think nobody's listening, nobody's watching. And he basically says, you know what, I thought a lot about what we talked about last night. I think you're right, and I want to try. I love you. I want to try. And then Arnold and his mom begin to talk. Now, because the mother actually saw the whole scene with Ed confessing his love to Arnold and taking David to school, the father figure of the house. So I mean, like, wow, yeah, that must have unlocked something in her heart, because they start having the first real conversation as real people that love each other and are leaving judgment to the side. I spent a lot of time putting this makeup, we only went alright. She actually finally says something incredibly beautiful and tender to try to console her child, her boy, who lost his boyfriend to a horrific attack. You know, she finally shows warmth and gives a really good advice. Really good advice to her child.
I miss him.
Give yourself time, Arnold. It gets better. And Arnold never goes away. He'll still be there. But that's all right. It becomes a part of you, like learning to wear a ring or a pair of eyeglasses. It's good. It's good because it makes sure you don't forget. You don't want to forget him, do you?
Then she goes away. Remember that the movie is based on a screenplay, so the ending of the movie is very theater. But it's the most beautiful ending possible, in my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't ask for a better ending to the movie, because Arnold just gets into a chair surrounded by an item from each and every person in his life that has been important to him. You know, that has been a source of love to him in any which way. So he has an item from David, from Ed, he has a picture of Alan, and he has oranges that his mom brought him from Florida. And he just embraced them all and just takes them really hard. Because he's finally happy. You know, he has the love that he has craven his whole life. I don't want to cry. I just really oh. I couldn't help it. I'm gonna get emotional. I really recommend you to watch the movie. It's a movie with an incredible queer representation. For example, one of the first things that I really enjoyed was the bisexual representation that we got. it's really good bisexual representation, you know? It's not like the whole thing of this guy that he's secretly gay, but he sleeps with women and he says he's bi, but you're just fooling yourself. You're just, you know, like, you're gay, bisexual people don't exist. Yeah, they do. They do. And Ed on the movie, he never, ever strays away from his sexuality. He likes both. He likes the mushy and the gucci. So I think that was incredible. That was really, really great. Especially, you know, the conversations that they had surrounding the sexuality of the character. And yes, I mean, in the end of the movie, Ed and Arnold get together, and the movie implies that they get together. But that's not because Ed was lying to himself. He had to go through it. He had to accept his own sexuality. He had to come to terms with the fact that some people are going to think stupid things about you. Are you ready for it? In the end, he said, yes, I think I am. That does not change 1 single gram of his bisexuality or his attraction to females. And yes, I mean, the movie does suffer from the trope of killing your gay. But there are many gays on the movie, so it's not that you're killing the gay character, you're killing a gay character. That is different. That is something that can be handled. It's just that it's an old movie, so of course it has a queer taste to it. But overall, I understand now why this movie was so cherished to in my head. So much so that I watched it once when I was a little boy, and I remembered it all of this time, you know. And I watched it back in Venezuela, a censored version, translated. There's a lot of dialogue on the movie that I'm not sure made it to Venezuela, because I mean, one of the other positive things of the movie is that they are never explicit about it, but they don't deny that queer people have sex, that we are sexual beings, that we enjoy sex and we want it. Maybe nowadays that might seem a little bit more normal, but back then simply having 2 men kissing on screen was like, can you imagine seeing 2 men on the same bed? Here I watch a man having 2 times the opportunity of sharing his bed with a male partner. So I don't want to credit it with you know, like my development as a queer person, but it was definitely an amazing base to have, you know. So bottom line, the movie reminded me of all this discussion and debates about representation and the importance of having queer people on screen and seeing us on screen. This was to me like a huge evidence of it, and I said truly from the heart, because again, I don't want to credit the movie with my development as a person in general, but I know that this movie gave me a lot of hope for the future and for my life in general. I grew up in a very homophobic country, in a very homophobic household. Basically, the movie told me, this is going to be your life. I have kind of the same emotional reactions that he does. I identify, I see myself reflected very, very much on Arnold, his way of being and his life in general. So to me, the movie told little 6-year-old me, this is gonna be life. It's gonna be tough, and you're gonna cry a lot, but it's gonna be okay in the end. You can find love, happiness, and have a family, and have everything you want. You will. Just chill. And I'm still chilling, waiting for, you know, my Ed or my Alan to come. Not my Alan. I don't want to go through a whole widow phase. Not well. Now I'm still this gorgeous. I don't know. It made me think like the first time a queer person must have watched Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. You know, it's like, like, yeah, I'm not a fucking freak. There are people like me. There are people like me, and we are awesome. We are awesome. In conclusion, Watch the movie. Watch it. I cannot believe that this movie is not better known. It's such an amazing piece of media. It's such a good queer representation. Not only gay representation, but bisexual as well. It's amazing. Just watch it for me. I know you don't know me. I know that this is the first time you ever see my face, but please watch it for me. Because it's really good. It is. And not only gay people, not only like queer people, like everyone. Like this is queer talk for the straight folk. So my intention is to talk about these issues in a way that straight people can understand them. So straight people, go watch the movie. It's amazing. Bisexual people, go watch the movie. Asexual, aromantic, gay, lesbian, just watch the freaking movie. It's amazing. It has something for everybody. And my queer people, my queer peeps, we need to keep fighting for more representation. We need to keep fighting for more, and more. We need more Pose, we need more Schitt's Creek, we need more everything. We need more RuPaul, we need more Dragula, we need more. Because when we get to see someone who's like us, at least on the inside, being free, being open, being themselves, that inspires us to be ourselves. That gives us the strength and the motivation to try to learn your makeup and try to look this good. So, yeah, please keep showing queer people on stage. All kinds of queer people. All of them. Not only gay people, not only lesbians, not only trans. Get me some asexuals. Get me some bisexuals. Get me some aros. We want everyone on screen. We want to see each and every different flavor of humanity that we have, because we have so many things to taste and to learn and to discover about being human. So why would we limit us? That's kind of stupid. I don't know. I talk a lot, so I think I should better just tell you goodbye and see you next time. Just watch the freaking movie. It's amazing.